All right, we will call this meeting to order on December 12th, the Woodford County Board of Education. Let the roll call show that we have 4 members present and Ms. Glass is not present due to a family emergency. If you would please stand and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is proposed amendments to the agenda, and I would ask that we move item D on the regular agenda, approving the instructional calendar, above the consent agenda, because we've got some teachers here to be ready to answer questions for us and we can get them out on time. So the next thing, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. And Mr. Atkins has advised that item F on the regular agenda will be removed.
We don't have those back yet.
Those items are not yet submitted, he says. Okay. So first item on the agenda is the superintendent's remarks.
Well, that was quick, wasn't it? We never get there that quick. First off, I want to talk about our Masons. Do a wonderful job for the students here in Woodford County. And when you think of everything they do, you wouldn't think that they'd be involved with our backpack programs. $15,000 every year. That pretty much funds our backpack programs. So hats off to our Masons. I did not get a chance to attend the dinner Friday night, but our Friskies did. And they have a really great meal too. I got the chance to go last year, so I hate that I missed it, but our Friskies got to go, and just unbelievable efforts from our Masons for our kids here in Woodford County. And that helps helps to feed our students and send some food home over the weekends that they may not have otherwise. So it's just a really good program. So hats off to our Masons. We've seen so many programs, concerts, presentations, plays. There's so many good things going on around Christmas time here, and that's that if you love kids, that's probably the best time to be in our schools. You get a chance to see the kids performing and presenting, and there's nothing like seeing kids' eyes light up when they see Christmas lights and Christmas trees and decorations, and I'm probably just like them because I love it as well. So we've had a great couple of weeks leading up to Christmas break. This is our last full week before Christmas break, so we want to take just a minute and wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see everyone back after Friday, be on the 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. So excited to have a little time and have everybody enjoy their family and friends. Also, we have started a new program in the district, and it's kind of been in the works for a little while. It's just taken us a while to get our T-shirts in, but we want to recognize our staff that go above and beyond. Dr. Bell had reached out to me about some bus drivers that had done some extra things to help him, so we were able to get with those folks. Our principals, we've asked them to just kind of make some nominations, and actually today I got to deliver a T-shirt, and we call it, the T-shirt says on the back, it's Kentucky with Woodford County popping out, but it says it's always a great day when you work in Woodford County Public Schools. Now, we wore out the English department over here at the high school trying to figure out if it's when you work in or at. And they settled on in, so that's what we got on the T-shirt. But had a chance to deliver a T-shirt today to an employee. We'd received a letter from a grandparent that just sung this employee's praises. So I had to go over and see her, meet her, and give her one of these shirts. And those are the kinds of things that's why we work at this, for the kids and for us to see the progress that they have. But with that being said, Merry Christmas to everybody. Everybody have a great holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Adkins. Ms. Hash, would you like to go?
Yes, of course. Okay, so I don't know if those watching from the live stream can see it, but right behind Miss Springate, there are a bunch of green bags over there that recently our Spanish department, as well as a bunch of high school students, filled with food for all of our families over the holidays and over winter break to have, which is obviously amazing. And it's amazing to see such good success from our food drive this year. So I just wanted to bring attention to that.
Thank you very much. Miss Richardson?
Yeah, so
Hit your mic if you don't care. There you
today
go.
was Career Day at Southside Elementary. I think they had to delay that because of the extra day we had to take before Thanksgiving. It looks like that was pretty successful. The kids enjoyed that. I have a lacrosse commitment that I'd like to mention. I know we talk a lot of times about the football and basketball teams, but our lacrosse teams are very successful at the high school. Dylan Caudell committed to, I might mispronounce this, but I believe it's Muskingum University. That's in Ohio. Is that how you say it? Okay. Dylan committed there last week, so that was a success for our lacrosse team. And then I have an alumni that I'd like to recognize, Sage Young. Sage left Woodford County High School and went and played for Vanderbilt, and this year he has earned a 2023 contract with the USFL New Jersey Generals. I believe Sage graduated in 2016 or 17, just a year before my daughter, but he was quite a star when he was here at Woodford County, and I like to kind of recognize our alumni as well. He might potentially be a Hall of Famer one of these days, but congratulations to Sage. And I'd like to say Merry Christmas to everybody. We've got that coming up pretty quick.
That's one of the reasons that we really took a good look at lacrosse as far as making it a sport. It had been so successful. We'd had several students that have signed contracts, but have signed scholarships. Just it's been so successful and good for the youth here in Woodford County. So I felt like that was the right thing to do to make
Yes.
that a high school sport, and we're hoping within a year or so that it's going to get sanctioned as a sanctioned high school sport as well.
Dylan's dad, Larry, was a principal at Simmons for several years, and they lived in Fayette County, but Dylan came to school as, I guess, as a tuition, actually, because at that time we didn't, I think, allow parents to bring their kids with them. I could be incorrect about that, but Dylan stayed with Woodford County, and they ultimately moved to Woodford County, so he was a blessing. He's one of my second children. I'm very proud of him, in case you can't tell.
That's great. Thank you. All right, I will go next, and I would echo Mr. Adkins' thanks of the Masons. I saw that Nathan Craig had been there to present the check for $15,000, and that is such a huge blessing to so many families. And the backpack program is something that sometimes charities can kind of fall by the wayside, and we have maintained the backpack program for so many different families for so many years, and that is something we're very appreciative of. So huge thank you to those folks for supporting our schools, and so many churches for that unwavering support. I would note that we've had a lot of holiday concerts. I got a chance to attend virtually the middle school band concert, and that was fantastic. We had the flu at our house, but I was able to watch from FaceTime, and those kids really played well. And we had a record number of students chosen for all district honors. I believe it's district for middle school. Huge number of students that either were awarded first, second, or third chair. So they'll have a chance to go and play with hundreds of other kids from other schools at a band performance coming up. I would say happy holidays to everyone. Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah. And I hope that all of our families and employees have a wonderful break and stay safe and healthy. And we move forward in a new year in a great way.
Me? Yeah. Okay. Forgive me, I'm going to read a little note from Miss Glass, who couldn't join us tonight. She is with her family. So she says, I apologize for my absence this evening. I had to unexpectedly leave town to tend to a family matter. I've asked Mrs. McHale to share my good news report. I would like to thank Mrs. Richardson and Ms. Bradley for their board service to students and staff of Woodford County Public Schools. They're a wonderful example of people coming together for a common goal, something I think we should all strive for. It's been my honor to work with them both. We thought it was appropriate, since it's our last sort of real meeting this year. I know we've got another one likely, but it won't be as formal. So that is from Miss Glass. From me, I get to go double. So I've got two items. I think anybody who's ever talked to me for more than 5 minutes knows that my kids play hockey. And I wanted to give a big shout out to a couple of our students and some junior class members. Mr. Williams, who's a social studies teacher here at the high school, and Miss Abshar, who teaches English here at the high school. They have consistently come out. They have taught a lot of the kids. There are probably 8 or 9 students that I counted that actually play JV or varsity hockey in Lexington. So we do have probably the largest number of kids concentrated on that high school team. They've come out to several games this year. They've even brought their kids to cheer on the students that they've had. And I can't tell you how much it means to our kids when they're doing something sort of outside of school that's their passion, that teachers can get behind and support, and it really means a lot to them. It means a lot to us. We had a big game last week against St. Xavier from Louisville, and they always bring a ton of fans. And we were able to recruit some of the junior class came to the game to support our juniors, and several parents after the game came up and they asked me if we could hire them to come to all of our games, because they were such fantastic fans. They were loud and yelling, and if you've ever been to a hockey game, that's how it is. You scream and you shout, and they were fantastic. So I think all around a really good impression that Woodford County has made on students and families across Central Kentucky. So a big thank you to all of them. And I would like to echo Miss Glass's comments to Miss Richardson and Miss Bradley. It's been, when I started here 2 years ago with my board service, I didn't know any of you. And I think that growing to know the two of you, knowing how this board sort of came together and seeing how the two of you have worked together, the leadership that you have provided, we wouldn't have the new high school. You led us through COVID and lots of other challenges that the district really needed strong support and leadership. And I can't say how grateful I am to having met and worked with both of you. And I hope to continue what can now become a real regular friendship outside of the school board. So thank you.
It's always hard to go last because everybody's taken all the great news, basically since the last meeting. But definitely happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everyone. And I'm so proud of our students for all of their academic, but also their athletic and their musical and all of their other achievements. I was able to attend the school board conference last weekend. Adam Brickler and Sarah McCowan, our 2 new members, were also there, as well as Miss Glass. And it was a wonderful time to just come together and learn all sorts of just really wonderful information that I think will really stand us in good stead coming into the new year with a new board.
Great. Thank you all. The next item on the agenda is the instructional and equity update from Mr. Asher.
Thank you. Good evening. Thanks to Ms. Tracy for filling in last month, or just a couple weeks ago, I guess it was. 76th day of school that we completed today, as we continue to count that up. What I'm going to do tonight is review our draft CDIP, Comprehensive District Improvement Plan. I always found CDIP or CSIP, the school level plan, to be a little unique in that it operates on a calendar year. And of course, that's not how school functions. So a number of these action items included on this plan are things that are already going. But we want to continue those not only through the second semester, but into next school year. So again, this is draft. I'll bring it back for final approval next month, as it does have to be formally approved. And also we'll bring the school CSIPs, Comprehensive School Improvement Plans, for your review next month. So a new, if you'll notice, it says updated May 22 as far as the template from KDE. It's updated because it matches our accountability system, what ultimately equates to our color ratings. And how it matches are the 7 required goals, and we're going to go through each of those. You have state assessment results in reading and math. That is one goal. You have state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing. That's the second. Then you have achievement gap, English learner progress, quality of school climate and safety, post-secondary readiness, and graduation rate. And so the link there is these are the same goals that are required on the school level plans. The only unique part there is that the post-secondary readiness, graduation rate only show up on the high school plan. That's where that's relevant. So let me go through each area. Again, this is a template provided, so the page there, second page, is just kind of directions and what it all means. And this is attached in your agendas if you want to review it later. The first goal there in reading and math, the goal at the top of this template is long range. So you'll see we chose the year 2025 to project out as far as a long range goal. And then your objectives are your short range. So taking us to May of 23 as the majority of this, well, all of it, I should say, comes from our accountability system where all the measurements come in May. And in regard to reading, there are several activities, and I'll just hit the highlights and won't read every single box to you, but administering a reading benchmark, which we also are doing that in math, full implementation of what's called Transcend this year, doing that in 3 through 8. That's not something we've had in the past. This is our first year of full implementation at those grade levels this year. Another thing that, as far as reading goes, evaluate current primary literacy instruction in order to implement evidence-based practices. So you may have heard of Senate Bill 9 or Read to Succeed. There are a number of requirements that come with that. It is specifically related to primary literacy. So in terms of the first thing that we're looking at is the universal screener and how we assess for reading. And this is a long-range plan that had come from the state as far as Senate Bill 9. And then, which applies to both reading and math, the Engage and Deeper Learning Initiative. I've been updating you all along on that. We're very close. In fact, next month, we'll be looking at our survey results for our Portrait of a Learner. That will be our, I know Ms. Tracy talked about a lot about this last meeting with her report. That'll be our end in mind, our driving force of what skills and competencies we want for our students. And then the next phase of that will be matching up those classroom experiences, those instructional strategies that we want to see if the collaboration or communication or critical thinking show up on our Portrait of a Learner. Those are the kind of experiences they should be getting in the classroom. So that's an overview of our reading and math.
Ryan, can I ask a question
Please.
in that? So when you're evaluating the reading data, I've been reading a lot at the state level about the efficacy, state and national, about the efficacy of the reading recovery program. Is that something that we're looking at the local level?
We are, and we're a little bit different in our involvement with reading recovery. In years past, we had RTA, Read to Achieve grants, and those were specifically written and had to be where you designated a specific intervention to provide. And so when we wrote those grants, it was for reading recovery. We no longer have those Read to Achieve, so we are not tied solely to reading recovery. So I say that because there are a variety of different intervention strategies and programs that we're using, not solely reading recovery. In fact, I think at this, I think there's just one of our reading specialists fully trained in reading recovery. I could be wrong on that. But yes, we're looking at that data all along. In fact, to go along with Senate Bill 9, I have a meeting with our reading specialist Wednesday. Remember, I said we got
Sure.
I had a schedule conflict that Mr. Atkins and I switched so I could meet with them to do just that. So to answer your question, yes.
Perfect.
But I also wanted to say that we're not solely tied to reading recovery as we had been in the past.
Good, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? I'll do it by section there. Any other reading or math questions? And one thing I want to mention on deeper learning, we put it under reading and math, but it really goes to all content areas. I just didn't want to repeat it page after page. Put it on the first point there.
Mr. Asher, quick question on the reading piece. What percentage are we at today?
In
in
our,
the proficient or distinguished levels in reading?
it's going to vary by level, elementary, middle, and high. I can't quote that for you.
Okay.
I know that we had those in front of us through our MTSS and how we set that 65%. I can certainly follow up and send you those levels.
Just sort of interested by maybe elementary, middle, high.
Sure.
Where we fall right now.
Yes, I can
Thank
do
you.
that.
Mr. Asher also, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I did wonder a little bit about just the process, and I appreciate having this draft so that we can go over that in an open meeting and have discussions. I was wondering, though, it seems like when you look at our policy, there are certain things, certain steps, and I was wondering if it would be possible for us to see the needs assessments from the school and possibly speak with the principals or, site-based or staff about the needs. And then also, I know there's a list of data that goes along that you guys review and that folks on the committee review prior to doing this plan. And so I think it would be helpful too if we could have some sort of a data meeting and go over that data, just so that we're all able to be on the same page and kind of understand where we're at. I think it would really help foundationally for us to be able to do the plan if we go through the steps and the stages. And one thing I would really, really love to see on the final plan is, something about reading interventionalists or math interventionalists as maybe possibly one of the strategies so that we could have that as part of our plan to help address the needs and have kind of a cost associated with that and have that as something that we're doing at the district level. In all the categories, I'd like to see, something of that nature where when you look at the sample, you're seeing specific strategies, specific timeframes, specific folks in charge of different things, and then specific costs. I think that would be really nice to have that in the final draft.
Okay. I think the main question, one of the questions you asked within there was, could you see the needs assessments? And yes, we have those at the district level. The whole CSIP, CDIP process has different phases, and there are certain diagnostics that we have to turn into the platform. So to answer your question, each school has their needs assessment within there, which we simply can pull off and provide. And when I said that I'll have CSIPs next month, principals will be here. That's what we typically do, have them here present if you have any specific questions. But yes, we have all of those. Like I said, we're required. The actual plan that we're doing right now, we're in phase 3 of it. There's multiple phases to get the whole process done. I will say a lot of these, there are a number of stakeholders involved when we talk about our deeper learning team. These aren't just solo efforts or just things that I've put on this plan. Deeper learning that I've mentioned before, there's a whole district level team and that includes teachers, administrators, community members, and a number of the activities. And I'll highlight that as we go through, involve multiple people.
Yeah, it would be nice. Just, I know everything I've ever done as far as any kind of plans, they always say you should have somebody who's accountable listed and you should have a date, just kind of like the SMART goal planning process. So I always try to do that to make sure because it helps with accountability and following up.
I think also attending some SBDM meetings might help because they do discuss a lot of this at those as well, I found. So if you can find a couple of those when they're discussing these, because it all is discussed at each of the local schools. And I've been lucky enough to be involved at least in the Huntertown discussion of a lot of this, so that would be helpful.
I definitely like to hear from the site-based councils. I think that's great. I served on that in the past, and so, and then the other thing is I just would like to see if we could get a list of the members on the committee and then the dates they met. Who's the school board representative? Do we have one or more than one serving?
I'm not certain on what are you referring to.
On this committee, the CDIP.
I don't have one currently, no.
Okay. that might be something we want to take a look at as the board. I've served on it in the past, and we have specific policies and administrative regulations about, the membership and that sort of thing too. So just something for us to be aware
Does
of.
it require a board?
I'm not sure
If it did, I wasn't aware.
is that something you would like to serve on, Ms. Springate?
I have served on it in the past. I think it's something that we need to discuss as a board and then possibly with the two new members, offer them that opportunity. But our policy and our AP regs just outline the process and, who's supposed to serve and there are all kinds of resources out there. And I know I've served on it before with Mr. Asher. And so I just wanted to make sure that we, follow our policy and go by the book, that kind of thing. So thank you.
And I would anticipate that you guys are planning for a data session probably in the February or March.
January.
Yeah, I think, yes. we did.
Yeah. And for the new board members, that will be especially helpful, especially if you can give them a list of acronyms before.
Actually, we planned as we were sitting here, that email both of them.
Actually, they do have a list of acronyms. I think we had it in a folder. Am I correct? I think
Perfect.
so.
And that was something we actually talked about. I said, I'm going to be referring to a lot of acronyms when I'm up here reporting. So we had actually talked about just kind of a onboarding. We did that with you and Ms. Glass
Yes.
from the instructional department outside of this format.
I think that would be very helpful. And then, having a lot of the data that Ms. Springate has requested, I think the data meeting would be a good spot for you to have that ready and present.
Second, did you have something, Mr. Asher?
Just,
Sorry.
I wanted to mention Transcend. You had mentioned Transcend, and basically we're a pilot for that. That's a KDE initiative, and what it's supposed to mirror what the new assessment's probably going to look like. So we had the opportunity to get on board with that. It was pretty good. And just give me a little update, Mr. Asher. What's the staff seem to? But I've talked to a few, but what do you?
The actual, yes, as far as the actual assessment part of it, what we're not pleased with, I'll be very honest, is the output. What we're getting, the teacher access to the results of those is somewhat limited just through the platform. And honestly, we had a virtual meet among all the districts, and that was a common gripe to Pearson, and trying to get teachers better access and reporting and breakdowns and item analysis. All of those sort of things is not where it needs to be quite yet.
And that was a little bit of a concern for me simply because it wasn't like MAP as far as how it broke down.
Right.
With that.
That's right.
Yeah. So, okay. Thank you.
One final comment. I was at actually a party after the Portrait of a Learner email came out, and parents were very excited
Good.
about that email, and they were excited to have some input. So
We got an update today from Dr. Young, who's helping us with that process. 394, I believe, responses. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And still more to come. We're encouraging our high school students to take it this week after finals. They have access to it as well.
great.
Second section, state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing. So you'll see the long-range goals at the top. Short-term objective, we're just taking aim at science this year. It is the science year for our curriculum review cycle, and that's what's referenced there as the first activity. We have a team of teachers going to a professional development series. Part of PIMSR is leading that work. We just had one last week. So that's kind of the professional learning part that they will do. And then the second semester is going through those phases of the model curriculum framework process that we'll go through. And basically what we do is update our local curriculum apps in regard to science. We look at what resources we're currently using, what we need to purchase, and the assessment piece in regard to science. And then also under this objective is continued development of comprehensive plan to incorporate STEAM education. So we've taken a couple steps towards that this year, but certainly want to make that keep that as a focus area. Any questions on that goal and objective? The next one, achievement gap. As it notes there, districts are not required to establish long-term achievement goals, but have yearly targets. So there are 3 that we have there. The first of which are disability IEP. and English language learner. I chose those first and foremost because those are the areas that we have 2 schools that are TSI in those categories. So want to support them in those efforts, and we know as well that those were identified at our secondary schools as far as TSI. We know that we need to address those at the elementary age, so obviously we don't get to that point. And then increase the percentage of proficient and distinguished minority students by 10% in both reading and math. And here are a couple activities. Again, this is another example that I mentioned, Ms. Springate, of a team of folks, part of the equity playbook process. I've mentioned this up here, but that is different from our equity team. It's very closely related, but the equity playbook is another state initiative that we are a part of. We have 3 schools involved with that right now, and leaders from those schools. It's a lot more intensive, I should say, as far as the personalized coaching that it has. And we are just getting started in that this past month, and we'll continue in January and beyond as far as what that involves. And then the next activity there talks about implement structures, processes to analyze demographic data. That is actually off of our equity plan that we've had for quite some time, really trying to put that in action. And that was part of our, if you see over there in the progress monitoring, part of our DEI review process that we're currently in right now. And that is done by our district equity team. Any questions on the achievement gap area?
It's not something I need an answer to tonight, obviously, because we haven't had our data meeting. But at our data meeting, I would like to know the percents in each of the subpopulation that are at proficiency.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
And if just heads up, in the meantime, if you wanted to, the school report card is very well done this year as far as that goes. You hover over and it has both district average and state averages to have that breakdown, but I certainly will be able to provide that in one format when we have our data meeting.
And those subpopulations are listed on the school report card.
They are.
They are. It's a little unwieldy, though, because you have to look at the different grade levels and you have to go by each subject. And
Yeah.
So it's a little unwieldy, and I definitely think that, having that data meeting is so valuable, especially for our new people, because it's really the basis, as
Yeah,
I
I
understand it,
agree.
the needs of the CDIP, and then the CDIP's the basis of us setting priorities,
Sure.
and then us funding and spending our time at meetings on students. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is
And-
there a different way that you would like for them to prepare that data then, just so they have time to do that?
I think it's been prepared in the
Yeah,
past.
I get what she's saying. The
Okay.
if you don't know what you're doing, so to speak, on the report card, it's a little hard. There's a lot of drop downs, a lot of click paths that you got to follow. But I think our format that we put in years past is kind of what you're referring to, kind of a one pager rather than the way it's presented in school report card. Correct?
Yes, and I think also, last year, I think you got that out to us a little early. So, I mean, if we have that a week or so early, anybody that wants to have more data can say, oh, hey, I see you have graduation rate stuff, but I was wondering about, the number of AP classes that were passed,
Right.
or I see that you've got this, but I also am interested in the scores for the different skills classes. So if you get that out to us early, then anyone can request additional data or information if it's not on there. I think you do a pretty good job of putting together a real comprehensive list of things, and if there's something new,
Sure.
you would have time to pop it on there. So thank
Okay.
you.
Goal 4, fourth area is English learner progress. This is a new requirement in that it is referencing the Access English Language Proficiency Assessment. We have done that for as long as I can remember. That assessment, it's required, but now it's actually tied to our accountability. So you'll see several things there. Again, this is another team effort, I'll say. This comes directly from our ELL team. All of these strategies, in fact, that we've had a series of meetings with to develop these activities and put these into place, but these are a few that we'll pull out and support from a district level. Any questions on the English learner goal?
Ryan, would you explain how we've addressed some of our issues at the middle school and high school level?
Sure. Well, I mean, first and foremost, one that we did even well before was the restructuring of our staffing and having that full-time teacher here at the high school, and then one at the middle school rather than split. So that was a restructuring we saw the need for, just simply based on the number of EL students that we had in our secondary level. So that's one major piece. Second thing is, like has mentioned here, the staff training on elevation strategies. Elevation is a curriculum resource platform that we have had for maybe 3 years. But we did that staff PD plan early on, and now it's just an implementation of it. So those were two things, regardless, before we even knew the results, before we even got our accountability back, that we had started to put into place and address, as Mr. Atkins had mentioned. Next category, quality of school, climate, and safety.
Sorry.
That's right.
On that one briefly, do you feel like the staff changes that we made are adequate for the needs that we have?
I'm still evaluating that. And
Okay.
I even had conversation, a cohort that I'm involved in today, just to ask on what levels they staffed it. And we were way above what they were. But I didn't have all their exact student numbers either. And so the question was asked, do you all have a formula on how you staff that? And I said, not exactly. Not as clear cut as we do
Sure, with
our
our-
regular classroom
Right.
teachers. So I don't want to answer that quite yet because I'm still evaluating that.
The other question I had is if you have multiple languages, do we increase staffing based on that?
Not necessarily, no. Our primary, obviously, language need is Spanish to English.
Sure.
We do have a couple more, but I haven't seen it to the level where it would impact your
Okay.
staffing. Those are obviously more rare
I think
cases.
going into the data meeting that is helpful. If you have a chance to kind of take a hard look at that and see if you feel like as a district we're meeting the needs, or if we need to take another look at staffing those positions at a higher teacher to, or lower teacher to student ratio.
Right.
I think that's helpful for the board.
And I really want to do, I really do want to take a look at neighboring districts. And, I mentioned the one today, they had a 0.7 for the district. And I was like, wow, 1.7. One
That's great.
ONE 0.7 teacher. Now, their numbers were not near as high as ours, but we definitely staff a lot more
aggressively.
robust than that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Goal 5, the quality of school climate and safety. So this is actually based on the student survey that you receive this index score, and you'll see both the long-term, short-term. We did very well in this in terms of our accountability. So the major thing that we want to do is just continuous growth and development of PBIS. You've heard that acronym for quite some time, but continuous growth. And so here are just a few things that pulled out that we want to emphasize for that growth piece. We do what's called a tiered fidelity inventory, quarterly school lead meetings. So Ms. Oates, who is our MTSS coordinator, which certainly involves PBIS, pulling those school leads together, and those, I think, in most cases, are teacher leads, but just a place where school leaders can collaborate together beyond just your administrators on what they're doing with PBIS. And how they're growing at their individual schools. And then also, and this one step is already completed, participation in the National PBIS Conference. They went back in October. Any questions on number 5? Okay, number 6, post-secondary readiness. As I mentioned, these next two will only be high school based. So post-secondary readiness is a little bit different from graduation rate. And a couple of things that we've highlighted there, again, started this year, but certainly want to continue is the Job for America's Graduates, the JAG program. So continuing that into next year. And then one that was just approved last month. I'm excited about this opportunity, our Career Readiness Coordinator. And that we're very close to getting that hired, but really just needs a lot of time and attention in order to, track the students as they make their way through CTE pathways. Even beyond that, just networking within our community, with our industry and business partners, just being a liaison and setting our kids up with opportunities, experiences for after after graduation. So excited about that opportunity. There is one, I've talked about several state-supported programs that we're part of, and actually I think I'll tie this in to this area now that I'm thinking about it, is it's called MindSpark. There's a team of us, myself, Dr. Rayburn, Ms. Tracy, Sandy Adams, and then the Career Readiness Coordinator, we will be a part of it, where we're looking at how are we emphasizing career readiness skills all the way down to elementary, through middle, and obviously into high school. So I think I'll add that there as well, and that's another example of a team effort that goes into this overall plan.
Also,
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
as well as the group that you and Garrett and Mr. Adkins all participate with, BCTC and local business leaders. You know, when they tell us, I've had a chance to attend a couple of those meetings, when they are sharing the needs kind of unique to our community and how we can have students that are ready to enter the workforce at different, you know, at Ruggles or at different opportunities here within Woodford County. I think that's another way that we are constantly looking at ways to improve and to develop those pathways for students to have success.
I agree.
We actually had Mayor Troggett and Ms. Downey from the chamber on our Forked River Learner Committee.
Yep. And I'm sorry, any others on that number 6 there? And then finally, graduation rate did very well in this category. You'll see as far as our long range goal, we want to get at 98% and short range at 97. The main activity pulling out here, and you've heard me mention BAR program, it's continuing that. This is the BAR trainers said this is a process. Your first year, you're not going to try to do it to full fidelity, but it has started off very well here under Ms. Preston's leadership, and we want to continue that next year. And ultimately, it is, I think the measure of success there, which I took from some of their action plan that they had developed, of what it's talking about, and just helping educators connect with their students in a different way. It requires a different way here at high school to ultimately try prevent dropout, to support them passing their courses, and ultimately leading to graduation. So we want to continue that to support our graduation rate.
So that's the same program as the grant that we recently looked at that provided stipends for, I think, 4 or 5 positions here at the high school to focus on that, or is that a separate one?
I think that's separate.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I'm not sure which one that.
That wouldn't have been, this is not grant-based.
Yeah, BAR was not.
BAR, it's a small, not very expensive, is it, Ryan? I can't recall what.
I wouldn't say not expensive. There's a lot that comes with it, including a coach that comes.
There are stipends that are recommended to go along with that.
We did, I don't know if that's what we're referring to, we did add, for the teachers that are participating, because of the extra time and meetings, they are receiving stipends for that. But it's not grant. I'm trying to search what you're
I'll look back.
referring to. Yeah,
The JAG program
was grant funded,
is grant
yes.
funded.
okay.
Thank you, Grant.
It's grant funded, but I don't think it has stipends, it's a teacher.
It does not. It
Did we
employs the
choose-
teacher. We use that grant to employ the JAG teacher.
Yeah, they pretty much pay for the whole.
I'll look back.
All right, let
Thank
me
you.
know. So,
I do have
sorry.
a quick question about this. And again, just back to the funding, in the final draft, it would be really lovely to see amounts.
Okay.
I noticed this is the only goal that has ESSER listed as a funding source. Are we going to be spending any of the ESSER money on any of the recovery for the ELL population, or the subpopulations, or the reading gap, or the math gap, or any of the other goals, or just this? Graduation rates?
I don't know.
Any of the new positions we fund through our, thanks, Josh. Any of the positions we funded, such as our mental health professionals that we hired, or ELL staff, we will pay for through ESSER, because they do qualify through the ESSER funds.
So-
As far as our improvement plan, though, are we going to be using any of the ESSER funds for the learning gap and the the needs of the students.
If Mr. Asher determines he needs some finances, then yeah, we will.
Okay, and that would be listed on here if that happens in the final draft. And then I guess the other follow-up question is, how are we going to be funding any of those positions you just mentioned after 2024 when the ESSER money is gone?
That's a good question. That's why I didn't really want to put positions in ESSER dollars. Because once ESSER dollars are gone,
That sounds like
Typically-
something that
typically
the
you have to
board,
cut positions.
that sounds like something the board needs to discuss in January. I'm not sure that I saw a lot of that on the ESSER plan, but perhaps we could see the ESSER plan updated and what the money was actually spent on. And if it went towards salaries and new positions, that's definitely something we want to get ahead of.
Very few of them went towards new positions.
We definitely funded.
Very little bit of the salaries that we paid went to new positions.
We funded 18 positions before you joined us
Yeah.
in the first year of COVID kind of planning. But we were also very clear that those were being paid out of ESSER money, and that would not be a reoccurring position, that
Yeah.
those were to manage our need to socially distance things. So that's something to be mindful of when you look back on how we spent that ESSER money.
Yeah,
There-
and that again was not ESSER, ARP ESSER funds. That was prior federal funds.
What's
And
the
those
difference,
positions
Ms.
were
Springate?
for
What
when,
would be the difference in those funds? Because they're all ESSER funds.
because they were not reoccurring positions. They were when we were having two different kinds of schools. We had a whole virtual academy, and then we had in-person as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of having the teachers try to do an in-room classroom and also a virtual classroom, we hired specific positions for that time. But I think what I heard you say a moment ago was that we were paying a bunch of new positions out of ESSER funds. And
did
so,
I
okay,
did
well,
not.
that's what I heard
We
you
had
say,
to-
so.
Well, you misheard that.
It sounds like it's, but
It
should
does,
we
because
still have the discussion
There
about,
was
do we
two-
have?
There was 2 mental health positions, and would be 1 ELL position.
Then it sounds like if those positions were funded out of ESSER, then we need to have a discussion about how they are going to be funded after 2024 when ESSER goes away. And again, I think it would be nice to have a list of that information so that we
You-
can do that.
You do have a list, you have a plan.
We
And I
al-
think the state required that to be updated in September. Perhaps that could be provided to the board.
Did you update that plan, Mr. Smith?
Oh, that would be wonderful if we
And
could
that
get a
plan is
copy of
available,
that.
it's available to the public.
Again, if that was updated to KDE, it would be nice if the board could also receive that. Thank you.
I believe it's on the website, correct, Mr. Smith? On KDE's, all of the GMAPs are available. Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Asher.
Equity.
Oh, I did mention, I meant to highlight that as I pulled it out. And I know Ms. Tracy made mention of it last month, our DEI review process, diversity, equity, inclusion, that is being done by our district level equity team. Sorry, just trying to get my verbiage down there. What it is we want to see if our action plan that I've referenced many times at this platform right here, what that looks like in schools. So we had 2 dates. We went through all elementaries, and I believe I mentioned this before up here, back in November. Both of them were in November, and then through the secondary schools. We looked at the visual element at that point and whether or not our schools, do they represent the students that are in it visually. Quite an extensive process, so we didn't get through the whole rubric that day. So just earlier, what's today? Last Thursday, we had a follow-up work session. We went through the entire rubric. Dr. Banks coaching us along to evaluate where our schools stand in terms of that rubric, and again, what our action plan looks like in each of the schools. We'll then take that feedback, that scoring of that rubric back to the principal and their equity team members at each school for next steps and how they can continue to implement those. I will say it's a learning process because even though we knew of some things that were going on, just the evidence wasn't provided. So in many cases, it's just like, we need to see evidence of X, Y, and Z, and please add that to the review folder, those sort of things. So that would be the main update I have there. It'll be a topic of conversation at our January meeting, so I can update the entire team. and develop next steps to move forward on that.
I think that on the equity issue, I think that there may be some issues that have come up at site-based decision-making councils that it might be helpful if I think we can still use Dr. Banks on a kind of as-needed basis. It may be helpful to have her insight available to our site-based decision-making councils.
Yeah, coincidentally, we were doing that work session I mentioned right in that room as the high school site-based meeting was going on in here. I had asked Mr. Wells just the other day for he and I to get a time on the calendar so he can update me on, you know, what was discussed here, and then put that on our January agenda.
Thank
and
you.
for that purpose right there, and just to update, because again, we have members on our district team outside of just high school members, because that's what that team is supposed to be, a sounding board for those sort of things.
Absolutely.
So yes, that was going to be on the January agenda as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Asher? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is an update on the new high school. Mr. Smith and Mr. Ratliff and Ms. Lemire.
I believe Mr. Ratliff brought some drone footage that he wants to show off and give a little description on.
Would you rather me stand by the screen and kind of explain, or try to do it from here?
I think that's fine.
Might
You
be
might be able to
difficult.
borrow Ms. Hash's microphone so that it can be on the
It's not going
stream
to be
as well.
awkward to hold, but just go ahead.
That's not snow, by the way.
I thought it was snow. It looked like snow. It's dust.
It's much harder than snow. I might tell you to pause it every now and then because of the way the flight goes, so, you can pause it there. So I'll just kind of, we'll call, like, the building is by phases on the drawing. So like we refer to this as Wing C. This is a classroom wing. I'm mainly English classrooms. I'm not going to name off every classroom in the wing, but that is fully excavated. They have completed all building pad blasting. So as you can see, rock hammering here, there's some areas that are too shallow to blast the rock. So to complete this area, they're rock hammering. This comes out to like D and F, which would be like your science, your front entrance area. Your E-wing goes this way. All that's already blasted, the vast majority of it. They'll start excavating rock tomorrow, like that'll empty out very quick. The blasting is the work that takes the longest. Then they'll start moving even up into the gym and storm shelter area. As you can see, it's all blasted. They've just got to basically carve it out of there. There's an item on the agenda that's upcoming that will kind of dictate this is not really holding anything up. As I know it's painful to see the equipment not moving, but basically through this upcoming change, we were able to work with the contractor, and given that that's on the table, it would be easier for him and a better situation to be taking all that rock to a different area of the job site versus where he planned. So that's why all that's hanging still until the decision's made later on this evening, and then tomorrow you'll see stuff start moving regardless of which way it goes. It's just kind of a logistics thing on the site contractor's end. So this would kind of be like the front road parking lot area. There's your gym.
Is it easier to see it up there? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good, you're good.
This is your Schoolhouse Road alternate connection that runs all the way through to Tyrone Pike. That's where a lot of the rock as wind is filled. There was a lot of fill for that road running along the project. The sanitary sewer tie-in has been completed. I know y'all are enjoying the little speed bump that you have each morning now.
Clay, does that remove that lift station there?
Yes, so that is the
And that lift
schedule.
station's been a little bit of a headache for us anyway, so
Yeah.
we've really kind of upgraded.
So that demo will start your first day of Christmas break, so
Yeah.
that way it doesn't interfere with the middle school operations. But when you get back, it will not be operating on that pump station any longer.
Thank you.
It'll be gravity fed, so there's just some less maintenance for you.
Yeah.
So there's your Tyrone Pike connection. That's like the future tennis court area. There's a 60-inch RCP that's been installed. They should install those head walls this week, depending on weather. That's not something you want to be doing if there's a lot of rain moving in. There's your classroom wings. Here's your gym area, storm shelter, band orchestra. You can kind of see it carved out, but it'll get deeper in the next few days, and then it'll really come to light. Here's your student parking area, and there's the future track and field area there. It's hard to really kind of take in how much earth has moved, because you can't see the highs and lows versus what used to be there, but there has been a lot of excavation and mass earth moving, and like I said, tonight's decision will really just decide where they keep hauling it from and to, and then it'll really start moving again. So.
Yeah, they don't want to have to move it a couple, 3 times, so they just,
No, double handling
See what the
as
decision
a
is
site
and then move
contractor.
forward, yeah.
That's kind of the deal. There's nothing wrong with either way he moves it. He just wants to make sure when he moves it, he doesn't have
That's
to do
the
it
only
again.
time he
That's
moves
when
it,
you run
yeah.
into problems, so.
So the road now is gravelled all the way to Tyrone.
It's shot rock fill. So there will actually be stone, like 3 inches of stone, cap that off, and then asphalt eventually, but that'll be much further down the road. It's not something you want to drive your personal vehicle on yet.
Okay. All right. Any further questions? All right, thank you, Clay, appreciate it. The next
I
item.
really like the footage. If we could do
yeah,
a little
that's
something like
great.
that every month, so the board can see the progress, I think it'd be great.
We have it on site now, so
Great.
we'll definitely be bringing better footage each
Great.
month.
Thank you.
All right. I had said we would move the item D up. Why don't we go ahead and do that ahead of the treasurer's report, if that's okay with you, Mr. Smith? All right. Mr. Wells, do you want to do the calendar update?
All right, good evening. You should have 2 calendar drafts that the committee has provided the board. For the most part, the calendar looks like it has for many years, starting the second Thursday in August, a full fall break, a full winter break, a full spring break, and the school year concluding the week before Memorial Day. What is different, and very different than what we've done in the past, and something the committee would like to try, is what we've done is add 4 staff work days, non-instructional, non-student work days to the calendar. And the trade-off for that would be removing 4 early release days from the calendar. Keeping the recommended calendar keeps the last day of school as an early release day, which seems to be a popular early release day in the calendar. And so that's the big change, the big difference than what we've done in the past. We've gotten a lot of feedback from teachers. Well, we've gotten that over the years of, needing time to be able to do some of the things that we ask them to do without having to spend personal time, without having to come in on the weekends. And so I believe the 4 days we've added, basically we eliminated the early release day in August and traded that off for a staff work day, which is on Friday the 25th. You may recall that early release day was specifically set aside for staff training, safe schools training, and so this day would also be safe schools training for those that did not have it completed. The next staff work day, the other staff work days, the other 3 that we are talking about are tacked on to a break in the calendar. So the Monday after fall break, the 3rd, so the day coming back from winter break, we are recommending a staff day. The day after spring break, so the Monday we return from spring break, which was also unique in, if you recall, all the hullabaloo around the last full eclipse that we had. That is another, primarily a full eclipse day, so we were going to have to, if you remember, districts were calling off all over Kentucky. And we have another eclipse on April the 8th, and the timing of that is like right at 3 o'clock, right when we dismiss, right when it causes all the issues. So that's basically the calendar. I know Ms. Probst was one of our teacher representatives on the calendar committee, and she provided us some really valuable feedback on some of these ideas. So happy to take any questions anyone has regarding the calendar.
So I have a couple questions. I think having the staff work day is a great example of a benefit that we can provide to our staff at no additional cost to the district. As long as we don't create PD needs or building needs, as long as those teachers can actually be in their classrooms working and we don't fill that time with other mandatory activities.
Yeah, and that is the intent. We had a lot of discussion about that in the committee, if it ends up being taken up with meetings all day long, professional development, that's not what it's for. It's
Right.
It's for the voices that we've heard about needing time to work in the classroom, and not just our teachers, our instructional assistants, who, when you think about it, they come on opening day and then they're here every day that the students are here. They don't have any other work day, so there's really no time for our no time outside of the typical school year for our instructional assistants and other support staff to work with our teachers in planning as well. So it's not just our teachers, it's other support staff as well that could use that time to plan and prepare for our students.
I think in thinking about the IAs, and especially with our primary kids, that's a lot of valuable time that they can be working with their teacher to plan activities and to plan curriculum and to address the different needs of their classrooms. I think that's a really valuable tool for the district, and it may be something that we see increases our testing and things that those measurable outcomes.
You know, and Michelle, for example, our health coordinator, just some of the things that our nurses do, that, you know, keeping up with all the paperwork and all the hours spent after school, just trying to not only take care of our student needs during the day, but also stay in compliance with all the other paperwork requirements. So, and those are just a couple of examples of other support staff. So,
And can you tell us a little bit about how you, feedback that you sought through the calendar committee from staff and parents?
yeah, by and large, it was overwhelmingly positive, especially from our employees, obviously. You know, and one of the reasons those work days are tacked on to a break is that our teachers spend so much time leading up to a break. There's often tests that happen before those natural breaks in a calendar, finals week, for example, this week. And then without those work days, you know, they come right back hitting the ground running without having any time to prepare for those students' return. So we tried to strategically place those days butted up to a break to give them that planning time to prepare for the students coming back. So they don't have to come in on a Sunday, for example, and give their own time to get ready for the students' return.
Perfect. Any other questions from the board?
One other thing I'll say, as a committee, we're required to give you two options. They just have to be different. So the other option 2, is the exact same calendar, except the last day would not be an early release day, it would be a full day. So our recommendation to the board is option 1 that has the last day and early release.
All right.
Mr. Wells, I did have a couple of just questions and comments. First, I'd like to thank everybody and you that put together the calendar committee and did that work. Did we have a board member that served on the calendar
Ms.
committee?
Glass
this year?
served on the
Ms.
calendar
Glass.
committee.
Yes, ma'am.
And my next question is, it didn't seem like there would be any cost associated with getting rid of the early release days and subbing in full days off. Is there a cost associated, just to be clear?
No, there would be no additional cost.
Okay. And there,
You know, there's going to be probably I have not done a financial analysis, but probably some level of cost savings by not necessarily running buses on that day and not having substitutes in the buildings on that day. So I don't know what that figure would be, though.
and I know we have the state minimum days, and at Woodford, we go over that because I've served on the committee a few times.
Yeah, we've always gone up. I did make sure that we definitely go the number of required days well over the number of required hours, even with this change.
So we're still good without the
Yes.
change? Perfect. And I know that you are really good about sending surveys out. So were you able to send a survey out about these changes to the staff, the parents, the students? Who all participated
So
in that?
as you've been on the committee in the
Yeah,
past,
yeah,
we
you've always did a good job.
We don't survey every year. This year we did do a survey of our staff leading up to the committee. I kind of went into it, well, actually, I think you were on the group back in the spring that kind of started to look at things, are there things that we can do from a retention and recruitment standpoint, maybe some creative things in the calendar. Got another group together this fall, and we ended up creating a pretty comprehensive survey. I want to say, 10 to 15 questions. Usually it's just like 1 or 2 questions around fall break, but it was a pretty extensive survey over just about every aspect of the calendar that you can imagine. But it was just sent to our staff because the purpose, at least the purpose for me, was to find out what they were feeling and what they felt like would help from a recruitment and retention standpoint. So yes, we did survey our staff this year leading up to the committee.
Okay.
And
can
then
we?
parents after.
That is the purpose of the
Well,
committee, though.
no,
is
we
you
didn't,
have
we did
parents
not
on the
send
committee.
an additional survey. I'm sorry.
You have parents on the committee. You have
Correct.
staff on the committee. I mean, you have almost every representation of stakeholders on the committee. That's why it's designed the way
Yeah,
it
the
is.
committee, certified staff, classified, parents, administrators, board member. So yes, we did get feedback from other groups, but the only formal survey we sent this year was prior to the committee's work, and that was to our staff to get their feedback.
Well, and I appreciate that you always do go above and beyond and you follow the policy and the statutory requirements with regards to the folks that have to serve on that committee. My only question is, I would like to know, like, as far as from a parental point of view, if those 4 extra days, daycare is sometimes an issue, having folks to be able to, take care of small children can sometimes be an issue. And I know in the past, we've always kind of checked with parents on that. So if that's something maybe we could follow up with after this year and just see if how that worked out for folks. It sounds like you're trying to tack it on while there are breaks, so it may not be an issue. Parents may say, well, I can take 6 days off if I'm taking 5 already. It may not be an issue, but just something to kind of think about and follow up on.
Yeah, most of it, absolutely. And as with any change that we've done with the calendar, we can do it for a year. If it doesn't work, if it's not helpful, we can always change it back.
Well, has there been any thought, Mr. Wells, to ETC being open on those days? Because I think that would be a good option.
Yeah,
for,
we've had that discussion in the committee. I've not had that conversation yet with Ashley, but they are typically open on days that
Right.
we're not in school, so I don't think that would be an issue.
Right. Okay. I think that's a good solution.
And then I just have a question. I know we got an email from Ms. Bradley that there might be need to have a special meeting. Was it for this calendar, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Okay, is there a reason we can't just vote on the calendar tonight?
Yeah, that is totally on me. I take full responsibility for that. The calendar does require 2 readings. I'm just so used to in the past, correct. And I just, when the schedule was changed for this year, it just did not compute with me at that time that I wasn't thinking about the calendar at that point and thinking about next year. So that's totally on me. But yes, it does require 1 meeting to share the calendar, and then it has to be a separate meeting where it's voted on. So my apologies.
Gotcha. No, I didn't pick up on that either. Those planning meetings were always really valuable to have the discussion and then to have the week and have it in the paper so that parents can kind of see where we're at and what we're thinking about doing before we do it, and we can get feedback from our constituents. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wells. The next item will be Mr. Smith and the treasurer's report and November financial report.
If you guys will reference your balance sheet report that's provided, I'll go over the fund balances. Beginning with the general fund, Fund 1, the ending balance as of November 30th was $19,876,127. Fund 2, Special Revenue Fund, had a fund balance of $306,460. The District Activity Fund 21 had a fund balance of $531,686. Fund 25, which is the School Activity Fund, had a fund balance of $452,860. The Capital Outlay 310, fund balance of $148,799. Building Fund 320, fund balance of, that's actually a negative $3,542,162. We have not recorded any capital outlay dollars received from the state yet. The Construction Fund, Fund 360, which houses the high school project, has a fund balance of $70,411,269 in it. The Debt Service Fund 400 has a fund balance of $4,274,677. Fund 51, the Food Service Fund, has a fund balance of $656,282. Fund 52, the Daycare Operations, has a fund balance of $600,990. And Fund 53, the Community Education Fund, has a fund balance of $29,908. If you'll reference your ESSER 2 report, there's a remaining balance in ESSER 2 of $44,376,029. Your ESSER 3 balance has a remaining balance of $735,810.57 in that. And are there any questions?
I was wondering, on the daycare fund, we had adjusted tuition. Do you feel like that has been effective in bringing that fund balance up to where you would like to see it?
Possibly. We would probably need to have some further discussion with Ms. Sullivan about that. We still have some significant grant dollars available for the ETC program that salaries are being paid from.
Okay.
So their fund balance has definitely grown. I'm just not sure, once we put all of the operating salaries back into the ETC program, where we would stand in that regard. I'm sure it's helped with the adjustment, but we'd have to talk to Ashley and have a little further research on that, I think.
Fair enough. Any other questions? All right. Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report and November financial report?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Richardson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 3-1. Next item is the opportunity for public comment. Ms. Cooper? None? All right. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Mr. Atkins, is there anything you'd like to note, or is there any item any board member would like to pull out?
I'd really like to, again, just emphasize what the Masons have done for us as far as, I say there's every month that there's something I hope that I get to just shout out from the rooftops that we've had a big donation. Well, $15,000 is a big donation.
That is a big
It
donation.
really helps our kids. The only other thing that I look down at, and it's approved contracts, and that's with Care Solis, and that is a group that would connect our students, our staff, their families with mental health providers. And it's at no cost, very minimal cost to the district. I think it's $4 a student, and we have the opportunity to use the program from now until June to see how well it works. And like I said, we run into, and Ms. Francis can tell you this, we run into having a very hard time of finding outside resources for our mental health specialists. So this would allow us to connect with folks that we haven't been able to connect with before, and get, I think, Ms. Francis, did he say within 72 hours we could have folks in front of mental health specialists? And like I said, it's very minimal cost.
What does, within 72 hours of signing the contract?
No,
you mean, or
of
72
them,
hours
of
the
them
need?
getting on, of the need.
Of the
Of
need.
either our counselor getting on there or the parent getting to the website and requesting help. We could have that help for them or their students that quickly.
So it is for anyone in the household, the parent, grandparent,
Grandparents.
guardian, doesn't
Yeah.
make a difference. And it's at that $4 cost per student.
And how does that compare right now to the rate at which we're able to offer that based on our permanent employees?
This is another layer. So this is connecting that outside piece that we do not have, even though we're able to provide the mental health services and supports in our district. Currently, right now, we have the secondary. So we have 2 mental health specialists, then they're split up between the elementary and the secondary. And, you know,
Mr. Bell told us too that, last week or
Right.
a month ago, that his support is really just, they're
they're overflowing.
They're
and-
overflowing.
Yeah, and they're at their max. And so what they do is they try to rotate students off based on the level of support and how they're responding to their therapies or the modality of therapy that they are required to make progress. But this is just a different layer. So even though our mental health specialists serve our students here in the district, they will also sometimes reach out to an outside agency, and they get that service for their parents or grandparents or whatever is needed.
Weekends, I've had a testimony actually last weekend
Yes.
of a staff member in a district that uses this. Their child had an issue, and on that Saturday, had they not been able to get in touch with someone, they were very scared as to what would have happened.
Yes, this provides that layer for the weekends, which we provide things, services and connections. Just yesterday, a student was at an emergency room and they needed support from the mental health specialist, and they were able to reach out. So that's one piece of that. But that, looking at what that parent needs to be successful for their child is another layer of that. And it's really hard to make those agency connections because we are just a unique little area. And all those services seem to go to, they go out. They don't come into us, they kind of go out and around. So this agency provides those connections. It's like a third party. So they have all these list of agencies. They have these connections and relationships with these agencies. And we will show parents how to log on, and they can log on and ask for support overnight, during the night, over the weekend, over holidays, and they will get that support. And then they will also keep the data for us. So it's a data piece for us, so we know what our students are requiring to be successful and what other layers we need to put into place or maybe to back off. It just depends on that piece that we're looking at. So.
That sounds wonderful. I mean, I don't know if you remember the statistics on how much our mental health referrals had gone up.
I do not.
It was
It is
significant.
It's significant. It is. We did go over the data this month with Ms. Oates. She pulls that data for us. Counselors collect that data, and our mental health specialists collect that data, and it has consistently increased. But I do not remember the specific
Yeah,
number. I can get that though.
No, that's unnecessary. I just
Okay.
think anything we can do to provide more support to that ever-growing demand. I mean, this is something that just in one board term has changed
It has.
significantly.
Definitely.
And
yes.
it's a, constantly evolving thing. So this is a great opportunity for us at low cost.
It's a low cost for what it provides.
And, I've had several districts that are using the program too, have talked to me that I've asked, and that they said it's been very positive for them. And, if it's something else we can provide, I would rather provide it as to not provide it and something out of our control happen. So I'd rather have it in place if we can.
Of course.
So all students will have access? It's
All
$4
students will have
for-
access for $4 each student, and all of the members in their household will have access to this. So it could be an older brother that's living there, a sister, their grandma, grandparents.
So is it
parents.
$4 per family then?
No,
or-
it's
Just per
four
student.
per student.
Per okay.
Yeah.
But
per
everybody
student.
can use
And
it.
But
is there
everyone can use it.
A limit?
Staff can use it.
Nope, staff can use it as well. There is not.
There's not a limit on the number of interactions or,
There is not.
wow.
I did.
No.
Go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, he also said they had a sliding scale that if folks didn't have insurance, and they had scholarships or
They do have a sliding scale and a support system for that piece, yes.
that they will help folks that don't maybe have insurance, those types of things as well.
Correct.
Get the help they need.
I just had a question. So the $4 per student, is that something the district is paying for?
Yeah.
And do you know a total on that?
That would be about 17,000. Well, it's going to be cut in half for the, because
It's
we're only doing it for
prorated.
half a year. It's prorated it right now because we wouldn't be starting until January, so it'd be about $8,500.
And is this a contract we're signing for multiple years, 1 year?
No, it'd just be till June or till July.
So just 1 year?
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
and some of those families have multiple students, so that, but they would only pay for one, correct?
Yeah, well, we pay for it anyway. The
Right,
district
right,
pays
the
for it, yeah.
district, but it would only be paying for one of those students, so
No,
it
we
wouldn't be
pay
for
for
every
every-
single student?
We pay for every
Yeah,
student.
it's
Okay.
$4 per student. So if you have multiple students in a household, if you had 3, then it's $4 for, $4 times
Okay.
3. Yeah.
But it's no cost to the family?
It's no cost to the
Right.
family.
So
That is
that's
the
good.
piece, that is the piece we are missing because we cannot get those outside therapies for, and supports for the parents and the grandparents. If you're dealing with anxiety or grief or whatever it may be, it's really hard to get that layer for them to get that therapy as well and learn alongside their child, like how do we deal with this and how do I support you and how do we communicate about this? So
just to
that's the
be-
piece where we need it, and we are not unique to that. That is across, that's across the nation right now.
Yeah, and I know we've tried different things and
Yeah.
different programs and providers, and it's hard to keep them staffed and hard to keep them here. But just to be clear, this is virtual?
It can be virtual, it can be
In
an
person.
in-person appointment. Yeah, they're just, I think the parents or the individual gets to choose, well, obviously not the student, but the parents will get
Yeah.
to choose for the student.
Is the agency located in Cumberland?
So the agencies are located throughout, and they have a relationship built with this company, and they say, I have X, Y, and Z therapist in this area, and then they align the therapy request, the need for the therapy with the professional that delivers that therapy modality. And that is what is very important, that we address the correct areas and needs.
Okay. Is this something we could get a follow-up report just to see who the therapists are in the area, or if we have any? Because that's
we-
been the issue in the past. is
We
just
can get a
don't have-
report from them as to who they work with, but that is ever changing, I will tell you that, depending on if someone opens and closes, which is very frequent. So, but yes, this is something we're going to follow, just like we follow every
And
other
they-
data
And they
piece
collect the
to
data as
collect.
well.
Mhm.
How
Yeah.
many individuals they've helped, and it's completely anonymous. We wouldn't even know, I don't think, unless our counselors were to recommend someone there.
Yes.
So how are we going to communicate with our families to let them know all the benefits
That's
of
a very
this?
good question. So the company comes with a promotional package as well. So they will give us the promotional items, and then we will work with Ms. Bailey on that and roll all that out through the pieces they give us, which is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal piece
Yeah.
to have, so we do not have to try to create all these things really quickly. But they provide that for us, and then we roll it out.
I feel like that's a huge benefit, especially when you get into relatives, parents, and other folks who might not have as much experience with the kids, and with the
Correct.
school system. So.
Yeah, I think it's a huge piece as well.
Yeah.
I was really happy to hear that.
Great.
I think this is a fantastic example of, we adopted the secondary insurance for physical issues with our students last year in providing, or this year, providing additional insurance. And this is us matching that with supports for mental health issues as well. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I appreciate you guys.
Nothing but good things about the student insurance.
Yeah.
Agreed. I appreciate you guys bringing this to us. Any other questions?
Now,
All right,
what?
thank you. Oh,
There were two attachments in the agenda, and it seemed to have maybe a little-
One is probably, I do not know. I'd have to look at it.
One was Cumberland Family Medical Center. but
Okay,
then
that
there-
is different.
Okay.
That is the master cover sheet. There's two contracts
Yep.
attached behind it.
Yes, I didn't
Yeah.
see sort of a summary, because we get the summary page, so I didn't get the same summary, or maybe I missed it in the agenda, but what
Yeah, it
is?
should be,
It's here.
Okay, so I just missed it. I was just wondering what the difference was. That's the summary one, and then there's a detailed one for each. I just didn't see it. I'll
Okay.
check the agenda again. and
okay, well,
find
if you have
a question
questions,
on
let me know.
Those are two different.
That's two different pieces.
this one.
Well, that connects to
I would love for Miss Hinman.
Hinman,
if she
yeah.
would, to come up and kind of Give us a snapshot of what this is.
Yeah.
This is amazing, is what this is
Yeah.
going to be.
And this kind of connects around, but I'll let her do her piece. It's another layer.
I didn't realize it was attached on the back of that.
So, Cumberland Family Medical Centers, what we're hoping for next year is that they will provide us with telehealth services to increase accessibility to health care for our students. So we have a lot of students in the school system that either they don't have insurance, parents can't get off work to take them to school or take them to the doctor. And so we are constantly, they're always sick. We're always seeing them in the office. Sometimes, for instance, I've had students that had ear infections, had one last year, had an ear infection for so long, mom couldn't take her to the doctor, her eardrum busted. So this is a really great opportunity for us to just provide more accessible health care for our students. This first year, for sure, it will be telehealth. So they'll have a telehealth system set up in each nurse's station. Our school nurses will be the hands and feet for the nurse practitioners and physician's assistants. So if we have a student that needs to be seen by a nurse practitioner, then we would make an appointment. The student would come to our office. Of course, we would already had consent from the parents. We will be able to dial into the nurse. She actually, Garrett and I went, Mr. Wells and I actually went and saw this take place. We got to see a mock visit. So there is a, it looks kind of like an iPod. You put a stethoscope on it. You put it to the heart and lung sounds. The nurse practitioner on the other end can hear heart and lung sounds. You put an otoscope on it, look in their ears. The nurse practitioner on the other end can see in their ears. They can look in their throat. They can prescribe medications for these students. They will allow us, we'll be under a CLIA waiver. So we'll be able to do strep tests, COVID tests, flu tests, urinalysis, so without having to send our students out. They will essentially be our medical director. So we will also be able to administer medications. So right now, if a student comes to me and they have a headache, and the parents haven't brought in medications and they don't have a signed prescribed medication form, I have to say, I'm sorry, I don't have anything to give you, just drink lots of water, let's see if it'll get better. Well, if the parents have opted in next year and a student comes to me and has a headache, I can call mom and say, hey, so-and-so has a headache, you know, it's an 8 out of 10, we have some Tylenol here, do you want me to give it? Okay, so it's really going to give us better healthcare access for our students, but also our hands won't be as tied in helping our students with the needs. I think it will really increase them staying at school, not having to go home as often. We can also use this for our staff. So if our staff are sick, they can see the nurse practitioner just like our students can.
That sounds wonderful. I guess my question would be,
Is no cost to the district at all.
your mic's not on.
I think, hopefully they can all hear me, would be no cost. There's no cost to the district. And again, they have the sliding scale as well. If we have students that don't have insurance, then they have a sliding scale as well that they would work out that they could still provide what these students need.
So at the beginning of the year, their consent forms will be built into our online registration. And the parents will either opt in or not opt in. So they'll give consent to be seen by a nurse practitioner or not. They were at that point, if they have insurance, will copy their insurance card, enter it just like they enter immunizations into the online registration or any other documentation. They would just enter that into online registration so that Cumberland Family Medical would have their insurance card. If they don't have insurance card, they can still be seen. It's on a sliding scale, like Mr. Adkins said, sliding scale income based. If they cannot, if they still can't pay, then they will waive that cost for that student.
Okay. My question is for Mr. Chenoweth. With a program like this, is there increased liability for the district? I'm thinking if an antibiotic is prescribed inadvertently with an allergy or something like that, is there risk?
There should not be. The way the system is set up, that each parent would receive a packet at the beginning of the school year that would allow the parent to essentially sign releases to allow the clinic staff to have full access to those types of records to find out like whatever student medical history we have, allergies, medical allergies, but the Cumberland Family Medical staff are not becoming employees or agents of the school district the way the contract's written. We're just creating a contact point for them. So essentially it's giving kids that more immediate access, but it's not any different than if they went next door or across the street to a health clinic if you had a doctor's office adjacent to a school. So it should not. There's lots of school districts that have done or have models, versions of this with various local medical service providers. So I have not seen that issue arise with any of those school health clinics.
That's great.
And Cumberland Family Medical is right now in 22 of our counties in the state. I've reached out and talked to approximately 15 of those counties, and I've heard nothing but wonderful from the staff. They're great to work with. They're very flexible. So I do think I think it'll be a great opportunity. More access, more healthcare access for our children is not a bad thing. It's always a good thing.
That's a great thing. Does this include like routine vaccines?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that. So they will do all of our well health or well child physicals. We can do well child physicals if the parents choose to. They can do the vaccines. They will do sports physicals
So
in
they
the
would do
summer.
groups of sports physicals.
Sports physicals. They will come and do flu vaccination clinics for our staff and our students. So yes, there's all kinds of things that they're willing to do for us. They can also, if we reach out to them, if we want to do their dental work, we have another company we work with now, but if we choose to go with them, they also have that program. And then they also would be a resource for behavioral and mental health if we needed extra support in that area.
Okay, and I should clarify my question. We would not be requiring any additional vaccinations or, imposing that as a school district on any parents. I don't want that to become the narrative, just that it is available should they choose to take advantage of it.
So then same question about the Care Solace. How do we get this information out to parents?
We will work with, we haven't exactly talked about how we'll get it out between now and, this won't start till August, or I'm hoping actually.
And that's if we can get in August, because
That's
they
right.
limit the number of districts they take.
Yeah, they're
We
taking.
couldn't get in January.
No.
So it would have to be August.
Yeah,
She
they're-
thought we could get in August.
Yeah, there are 3 districts looking at August right now, and they have 2 slots open. So if we can go ahead and get our name on that slot, it will start in August. I'm actually going to see if they'll let us start July 1st. That way we can go ahead and get our sports physicals done in July. That's my hope. So we have, we have to talk about how we're going to communicate that out to parents between now and then. But then they'll definitely know before school starts, because they'll have that piece on the registration where they'll have to sign consent.
Do you envision then the needs of our school nurses going up, as far as they're the ones that are going to be holding that iPod thing, right? They're the ones that are going to be looking in the ears.
Right. So it could slightly, but here's what I think will happen is right now, we have students who, Johnny may come to me today because he has a sore throat. And I call mom and I say, Johnny doesn't have a fever, but he has a sore throat. Just want FYI, you might want to get it checked out. Well, tomorrow he comes to me again, maybe twice, because he still has a sore throat. He still feels bad. I'm checking his temperature 2 or 3 times. And sometimes that goes on for 3 or 4 days. So if we're able to get Johnny seen by a nurse practitioner right away, get him treated, get that taken care of, he's not going to be coming back 2 or 3 times the next 3 or 4 days. So while I do think it will add a little bit of work to us, I think there's going to be some that, it will take away from us because of those repetitive visits.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And is this going to be effective in managing kind of ongoing health conditions as well, or do you see it more as like an acute point of care?
It can help in ongoing. For instance, and I'll give you some examples. We have a lot of asthmatics in our school system, and sometimes we start school in August. But, they have to have new orders starting July 1st of each year. Some parents can't get them to the doctor. So we had 2 students at my school this year who they were having asthma attacks August, September. Finally, the end of October, we were able to get orders in an inhaler because they just couldn't get to the doctor for whatever reason. So we wouldn't have to wait that long, because we would have a medical director that could sign orders for us, prescribe an inhaler, and they would get treatment earlier. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I was actually, that that does. I was thinking about our diabetic students as well.
Well, they probably, I mean, they would be there for us for our diabetics, but I
Just
don't
as a
think they would
support.
manage diabetes because they go to usually an endocrinologist. Barnstable Brown.
They also have a clinic now here in
They
Versailles, am I
do.
correct?
Versailles Pediatrics is actually Cumberland Family Medical.
Okay,
Yeah, so if we did need to refer out,
that's great.
then we could refer to them.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Any
All right.
further questions?
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Anything else on the consent agenda? All right, all those in favor?
I make a
I'm
motion.
sorry, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. Springate, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Moving on to our regular agenda, is there a motion to accept the notification of personnel matters?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. I'll second that. Any discussion?
Just to note that it looks like our retention efforts look to be paying off. I think I saw a very short list this month compared to other months, so it looks
Promising?
promising. Yes, hopeful. Yes.
You know, we surveyed staff. Staff felt like 2 paydays a month would help us keep and even, you know, recruit some staff simply because you've got a young teacher and they're having to wait an entire month. They're having to pay rent and travel over here for work, and I mean it's hard for that. So when we surveyed, actually, Mr. Wells surveyed the staff, and they felt like that would be the best option. And Mr. Smith's working on getting that in place for July. So we're trying. We got efforts. We're working at it.
One data point isn't a trend, but
Yeah.
I'm
For
very
sure.
hopeful. So
Take them where we can get them.
exactly.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Item B is to accept notification of payment of bills. Is there a motion to accept notification?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. I'll second that. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Item C is to approve the meeting minutes from November 28th, 2022 board meetings.
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. I will second that. Any discussion?
Yes, I'm going to abstain.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 3 in favor, 1 abstention, 1 absent. Item E is to approve the board meeting dates for 2023. Those are attached to the meeting agenda.
Angel basically just went through and set them up the same way they were for this year.
Ms. Cooper, is there anything you would like to call our attention to on
Is
that?
there anything different that,
The only thing we did switch, we switched the location on June and July to make it more accessible to our safe harbor staff. Presentations.
yeah, because that always runs into an issue with some of their vacations and that type of thing as well. Yeah.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve the board meeting dates?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Richardson. Any discussion?
Yes, I did have some discussion on this one. What I would ask is that we do not vote on these dates until the new board members are here in January, that we possibly just schedule the January meeting and then allow the new board with the 2 new members to set the dates for the year. That'll avoid meetings being special call meetings if we have to add, we decide to add like planning sessions, or if that date doesn't work for them for whatever reason, you just wouldn't want to set a whole year's worth of meetings and then have to go back and have them all be special meetings, because that would be very limiting.
I think this is how we've typically done it. I don't
I was gonna
recall.
say, we've always done it that when we came on the board, the year
then-
was already set. Yeah.
And there's no change to the methodology, right, Ms.
Right.
Cooper? It's always the last Monday, fourth Monday of the month,
Unless there's a holiday.
other than the holidays, so Thanksgiving in December.
And I think also it's plenty of notice if there is something that someone can't make or that they need to change, they can change that at the beginning of the year or each month. We've had to do that before, so I don't see any reason not to vote on it tonight.
Yeah.
Well, I do think that it's a big inconvenience and very confusing for parents when you have 12 meetings scheduled and you might move or change 8 or 9, possibly 10 of
It's
those
also a
meetings in
big
year.
inconvenience when we have
And
one board
so-
member who continually asks for special meetings and we need to have a meeting on this and a meeting on that. So I don't really see what the difference is.
And I really don't, in all honesty, see a situation where we would change 8 or 9 or 10 of these board meetings. This has been the schedule. This board meeting has happened on this day, fourth Monday of every month, for however long. The only change is this will be the second year without the special meeting. So I really fail to see the problem with voting this.
Well, and again,
now.
what I would say is, if you look back at this past year, we've had a ton of special meetings that I did not ask for.
That you
We've had a
absolutely
ton
did
of
ask for,
meetings
and some
where-
that you said you couldn't make it, and you asked us to change the meeting agenda specifically for you, when no other board member has asked for that accommodation for themselves.
Okay, I would like to finish speaking now.
Well,
As I was
that's
saying,
the problem. You typically don't finish speaking, so we have to move on without you being done.
Madam Chair, could you please call her to order so that I can just finish?
I
All
think I
wanna
get
say-
3 minutes to talk if there's going to be a call to order, and I don't think either one of us so far have met that 3-minute mark.
Madam Chair, can you please have
Yes,
her
if
be
you'll finish
silent
your
so I
thought,
can finish?
please.
Thank you. As I was saying, I just think it makes sense to have a calendar that we stick to, and we haven't done that in this past year. It makes sense to have a calendar that when we put it up, it doesn't change, the location doesn't change, the time doesn't change. And then it also makes sense that if 2 new board members coming in January want to add back the planning meeting, so we could avoid situations like we had tonight with the calendar, that would be something we would give them the courtesy of doing. And that really is all I have to say, so thank you.
And there would be no reason why if that topic came to talk again at the beginning of the year next year to add, because those would all be special meetings, right? That meeting is a special meeting anyway. So I just don't see the point of not voting tonight on
Right.
this particular
And I'd
schedule.
like to add too, over the last 4 years, I don't think that there's been a single year that we've had all of our board meetings scheduled, that we've stuck exactly to that agenda or that calendar. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't go ahead and vote for it tonight.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the board meeting dates for 2023, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 3-1. Item G is to approve the proposal for the district facilities plan and K-Fix assessment. Mr. Smith, you want to talk us through this?
So there's a contract attached from Ross Tarrant to basically redo our K-Fix and our district facilities plan. The contract establishes what the scope of work will be and what the contracted price estimate would be for doing this. The cost would be $43,673.
And this is something that we're having to do because a lot of information was inaccurately captured on our K-Fix report that our district facility plan used in this past committee planning period. So it is unfortunate that the district is going to have to incur this cost, but it is imperative to have accurate information in looking at the current status of all of our buildings and their needs.
I would agree with that if I was not here, obviously, when that was conducted, but we absolutely need to have an accurate evaluation of our district so that we can have a properly prioritized facility plan moving forward for long-range planning purposes.
And it's important, we do get, albeit minimal, assistance from the state, and that assistance is based on accurately capturing your need in facilities. And that's something that I think perhaps other districts have done more aggressively and better than we have. So that's an opportunity for improvement. Is there a motion to approve the proposal for the district facility plan and K-Fix assessment? There's a motion by Ms. McHale. I will second that. Is there any further discussion?
I do have one quick question. Do we go out to bid on these items? Or would we?
I think it is going, in this case, and this is something that was not the case last time. the last time that this was done, the superintendent chose not to use our current architect and used a different firm as part of like their ability to award contracts under a certain amount. This, I believe, we have discussed the advantages of using our current architect of record to make sure that, you know, they are the ones that are in the buildings if we have issues like the bleacher issue or things like that, and they're more familiar. I think that's kind of the advantage. But I'll let Mr. Smith answer the question about bidding or not.
Well, I agree with what you just stated. Obviously, this does exceed the model procurement bid threshold. However, with Ross Tarrant being our current architect and doing all of the other work for us, I think it would make sense to be able to utilize them for this particular project, so.
I think that's fair. I think there are times when you have a single source justification of why you would not go out to bid. And if that is your justification, I understand that. I just wanted to ask.
Thank you.
No,
I
I
do have
think
a
that's a
couple
good question.
questions. Are we required to go out to bid because of the amount, or are we not required to go out to bid?
I would not think that we would be required to bid because, as I mentioned, they do all of our architectic work currently, so.
I think
It's a professional service that you're allowed to do non-competitive negotiation just by selecting a firm. And most districts, I think, do go with their current architect because it's non-competitive negotiation is permitted.
Okay, so you don't have to go out to bid.
You do not at all.
My next question is, these reports are due every 4 years, and I'm not sure why we would spend, over $43,000 when it's not due yet. It's not due for another couple of years. The last one we had really hasn't even been 2 years that I can think of. And then the third thing is just a procedural question. If you're getting a new KFIX report, are you reconvening the District Facilities Committee?
I don't think you have to do one to do the other.
But is that the plan, is my question?
What we have discussed as a board for multiple months now is the need to have the KFIX accurately reflecting the state of our buildings, especially the high school that we're sitting in, that with a lot of the concerns that you have brought up and that we have all, echoed, I'm not sure those are accurately captured on the KFIX, and I know that our capacities are not accurately reported on the previous KFIX, and those things are important. Details do matter when looking at that and planning for growth within the community. The second part of your question, as far as the need to reconvene the district facilities plan, I think that we need to have a plan for this building, and the best way and most transparent way to determine what the community and what our stakeholders think we should be using this for is to reconvene the district facilities plan in some capacity. I think Ms. Lemire is probably ready to speak tonight to whether or not we need to have a full district facility planning committee progression, or if we can do this with a finding and do a more limited scope, which would be more time effective and a little easier for the community.
Well, I would say that I don't think that there are multiple mistakes or misrepresentations in the KFIX report that we received before. We had opportunity to go over that in open meetings and to ask questions on a few different occasions. And as far as I recall, when I read through the needs of the high school, the roof was listed, the HVA system was listed, so those needs were listed. And I just know from when I served on the District Facilities Committee that the number capacity is done through a formula from KDE. So that's not something I think that would be changing necessarily.
We can,
Did.
I think
It
the
did
most
change. It
effective
went
way
from
to do
a
this.
higher
would-
amount to a lower amount on this last one. And I'm like you, that shouldn't change. And when I asked, I think Ross Tarrant took the information from the KFIX and provided the DFP. Those capacities had changed greatly, had decreased.
Yeah, I'm not
And that shouldn't happen
speculating.
because our schools didn't get any smaller. You're right. You're exactly right. There's a formula
Formula.
that's used. Yeah. So, but for some reason, those numbers had decreased greatly in capacity at our schools, and that shouldn't happen because our schools didn't get any smaller.
Can you provide that information or those changes to us? Because I definitely would like to see that. I don't recall any of that coming up when we went over that. And this board has gone over that KFEX report before. And I don't recall any, I do recall the needs of the buildings being on there and listed and the roof and those sorts of things. I do think that, we all know that this school has, very expensive renovation needs that are, going to be in the future, that are here now. And honestly, I think, we can stand here tonight and say for free that it's going to be very expensive to do any of those renovations and some of the repairs that are required. I just don't know that, redoing a KFIX report when we just had one done without knowing what these discrepancies are makes a whole lot of sense, especially when it's not due. KDE doesn't require it except every 4 years, and it hasn't even been 2 at this point.
Okay,
So
I think the wonderful thing is we have an expert here to weigh in on this, and it doesn't have to be your thoughts or mine. We have our architect here who can tell us with certainty whether or not the KFIX accurately reflects our district's current needs.
All right, there. Is it on?
No.
Is it on now? I can't use the mic apparently.
You're welcome to step up.
All right, there was a lot to unpack in all of those questions, so I made some notes and I will try to answer all of them. First, as to the accuracy of your existing KFIX, I can't say it's not accurate or 100% accurate. We noticed some discrepancies in some of those student counts, and that's why we were asked to look at it for one particular school, and that is to move forward and check all of that is important to make sure that it is all accurate. So that's why we were asked to put the proposal together. We may find more, we may not. It's an evaluation and a process where we go through every school and evaluate it. And we will do that one school at a time and see what we find and do those reports. In terms of whether this is a full KFIX, a finding, or an amendment or full DFP, I think once we do the KFIX, we might have some ways to decide whether or not you want to do a finding and only focus on what you're going to do with this existing building for the school, for this existing high school, or maybe as soon as it becomes more than one school that you might want to address as a part of a revised DFP, it has to become an amendment or it has to become a new DFP altogether. And so it will be a matter of looking at the KFIX and thinking about what your current DFP says, and then you all can decide whether you want to go through the full DFP process or if you really just want to make it a finding or an amendment. But those are decisions that can happen after you've evaluated your facilities and know what it is you're looking at and can set goals from there. Did I answer everything there?
So what school has the discrepancy? It sounds like it's not multiple discrepancies. There's just maybe a capacity discrepancy you see in one school. Is that the high school?
It was another high school. It was one of the elementary schools, and I don't remember which one it was, but it was showing.
I think it's Southside.
It
Okay,
is.
the south side sounds right. It was showing significantly lesser capacity in that school than what the school has. And that was all data that is pulled from the KFIX.
Okay. So really it's just a capacity number, and you can look at those building plans and square footage and determine if the capacity is correct or not. It doesn't require a full, assessment, it sounds like. It sounds like that this entire process is geared towards the high school, that this has somehow to do with this existing high school, and perhaps folks want to change the facilities plan where our current plan committee had determined that this would be used for advanced manufacturing, for community partnerships with local businesses, that sort of thing. And it sounds like that's really kind of at the heart of this, is to change something about the high school.
I don't think anybody is saying that the usage would change. I also don't think that should be a final say that, yes, we have the final usage for this building determined. However, in the last 2 years, we have seen significant work done on, for example, the bleachers. That's not something that showed up in any of the reports that I saw. So I do think, especially as you have an aging building, it's really important to have a very up-to-date, accurate view of what is going on in this facility. It could put the cost over a point that you may or may not want to do that, and you may investigate some other way. But to go into that using a report that's 2 years old, I think, is not a good use of information, quite frankly.
Well, and again, I don't know that a K-Fix assessment would have caught the bleachers or even assessed the bleachers. I don't know that that's really what that does. But on the flip side of that, we have a process through policy and through statute and through law that is a facility planning process and a prescribed committee, and they've made findings and put a report, and that's gone to KDE, and that's been approved by this board, and that's done every 4 years.
I think that's mandated. That to me means minimum of every 4 years. As your district's needs change and as the facility changes, I don't see any reason why not to look at it again. I mean, what's the harm in looking at it again and understanding that we do in fact have a good base for information?
I think it's just policy and law for one thing, and then for another thing, if you have new boards coming in, then
Mr.
they would go
Chenoweth,
back
does it
and.
say somewhere that we cannot do an assessment on the facilities, but every 4 years and through this district facilities plan? Okay. I think that is, in general, taking care of your facilities and making sure that we have everything we need, or we know what we're going to need.
And I think, Mr. Smith, as the facilities director for the district, what is your recommendation?
I would absolutely recommend that we revisit that because I'm aware of at least one major repair that was omitted from the DFP that I am aware of at a facility that is not the high school. And so having that piece of information, I would recommend that it be revisited and reviewed for any other potential omissions from the report.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, were you going to?
Well, I was just going to say, for prioritization on the DFP, if something is not listed, we would be unable to use restricted dollars in the future to make those repairs. And so that's why I think it's important that we revisit that.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of approval for the district facility plan and K-Fix assessment, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 3-1. Item H is to approve the second reading of policy 09.112, employee open enrollment. And we had a reading of this last month, and this is just the follow-up. This would allow our staff to choose the elementary school that their students would attend as long as space is available, rather than having them directed specifically by policy. Is there a motion to approve the second reading of 09.112?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale, and I will second that. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Item I is to approve Phase 2 construction contract with L.E. Gregg Associates to conduct required special inspections. Mr. Smith?
Yes, this is just a standard geotechnical and special inspection contract with L.E. Gregg to do all the work necessary for the athletic fields and track.
All right. And is there a motion to approve that construction contract?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Richardson. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Item J is to approve the change order number 2 for the new Woodford County High School Phase 1 construction. Mr. Smith?
So I'm going to invite Sarah Lemire from Ross Tarrant up here to give a more technical explanation, but I'll attempt it while she's coming. So Clay alluded to a possible change order earlier when we were reviewing the drone footage, and that relates to the athletic field and the track. The geotechnical engineer has determined that where the track and the field are going is going to have to be stripped down to the bedrock, and then infill with the shot rock is going to have to be put back, and due to all the compaction needs that need to go in there due to the fill, that has resulted in this change order. And so that is the reason for the change order and why we need to get it approved to move forward with the field and the track.
Ms. Lemire?
Great explanation. So this is basically a change order that is to the original contract that needs to happen in order for the track and field to happen, because we need to get the earth compacted where that field is going to go in place. Right now, we had it where we thought it was going to be sitting for a couple of years and that it was naturally going to compact, but now that you're able to move forward with that track much faster, we have to, and I'm not saying this, we need to take out some of that soil, put in rock and compact it and control the compaction so that you don't have settlement in the track after it gets built. So this is something we want the contractor in the phase one to do, because he is the one that is moving all of that earth right now, and he's going to be able to move it over now to this track rather than put it someplace else. So it's a kind of, if we don't do this change order, then you're going to have a track that's going to settle down the line when you put that track in. So it's kind of a, do this, and then the field and track can get put in place. Did I say that? Sometimes contractors say things like that a little better than me, so.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the change order as described?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Richardson. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. McHale. Is there any discussion?
I do have discussion, not just about this specifically, but I know this is our second change order, and I just wondered if we could kind of keep up with that as a board, and something that we could make sure that we're aware of, just the total numbers on the change orders, because at some point I assume we're going to have to kind of prioritize, but not specifically about this. I just wanted to make sure we keep up with that. I know we had one earlier for around 7,000-8,000, and then this one for I guess about $500,000.
Yeah, $500,000. So I will say that we are definitely tracking those numbers, and as those number grows, we'll be keeping an eye on, because this is coming out of contingency, so we're keeping an eye on that. We will keep you updated.
I think
you.
that would be helpful to add, to echo what Ms. Springate said. I think
Yep.
it'd be helpful to add that to the monthly report on new construction, just as a standing kind of agenda item for you all to have.
I think that is a great idea, and we can definitely add the change orders where we are, and schedule too. I think that we need to add that as a part of the monthly report when he's going over it.
All right.
The high
Any other
school.
discussion?
The change orders would have the total amount of the contingency available, and then what the change orders have been, or starting change orders net.
We'll be tracking that a little differently. With a CM, you have
Your
a
mics.
change order that goes to each contract, so it doesn't actually have the total contingency on it, but we will make sure we keep track of that. If you were doing a general contractor, that contingency would be listed on it, but because there's kind of several bid packages, it's tracked a little differently.
But I'm certain that you can gather that as a total project.
That's what you're talking about, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm just talking about as a board, us having an awareness of that total. So I appreciate you adding that. And then I also like the idea of a schedule. I think that's something folks have mentioned before, so that's wonderful. Thank you.
All right. All those in favor of the change order, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Ms. Lemire. There is no old business under communications. Mr. Chenoweth.
Yes, I communicated with the board chair and Mr. Adkins last week that I was going to make a recommendation to the new board to begin the process in January to select new general counsel for for the school district, and request the board to continue my contract on an as-needed basis, the same way I have with numerous school districts, where I could continue to offer support for personnel and special ed matters, but that the board team select a new general counsel to essentially give the board a fresh start for board meetings and developing that new team.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chenoweth.
Just a quick question. Are we at risk at all with not having, I assume, what is the effective date of that?
It's whatever the board chooses. I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. I'm available until you make that decision, so that new board can have that discussion, talk about the process, talk about whether you want to pick from amongst those other firms that interviewed when you went through the process last time, whether you want to go through a different process to interview or solicit interested firms. I know one of the firms that you all interviewed, the one that Teresa Combs works for, one of the partners at that firm that also did school law work, he passed away. So I don't know if there's been any change with that firm, but
Sounds like a significant one.
yeah, I don't know how much of the work he did with other districts. I know he was Berea Independence General Counsel for a long, long time, but I don't know how much general counsel work he did for other districts. So I'm not going anywhere. Tonight's not my last meeting or anything. I'll do whatever you all want me to do for as long as you ask me to do it. I just think it would be helpful for that new board team to have a fresh perspective here to help the new team learn how to kind of work together perhaps better than the most recent couple of years have gone. And as I said at the October board meeting, I don't have that skill set. It's not, you all need somebody other than me to help during these meetings to help address some of these matters. And it's not me. So I'd rather you all have somebody that can help you serve your community better than I can.
Mr. Atkins, is that something you can put together, a request for proposal and send out to law firms like we did 2 years ago when Mr. Chenoweth was selected?
We can do it however the board decides. You charge me to do it, and I'll do whatever you tell me to do.
Well, I think we did. We sat through, I know Miss Bradley, myself, and Miss Springate sat through
It was this board.
2 days. Okay, so you guys were here too. Yeah, we did sit through 2 days of interviewing board attorneys, and I'm assuming we still have Mr. Salisbury still as well. Is that correct? At our disposal if we need him?
No.
No, I think
I was asking Miss Bradley.
I think that contract was entered into with the board that had Mr. Wilson and Miss Edlin. This board did the interview process with the with Mr. Chenoweth and the other people that responded to the DFP. But that was shortly after you joined the board, I believe.
That was the very first
Okay.
thing I think we did.
Right.
Yeah, but just as we can use Mr. Chenoweth for professional services, I mean, again, it's up to whatever you guys want. We could also use someone else for professional services until you make a decision. So.
It seems like what we did last time was the superintendent sent out a request for proposal, and that went out to law firms, and then they responded with if they were willing and able, what services they could provide, at what cost. And then once we received those, the board had a meeting and went through and did interviews and then selected a person through a vote. So I would think that would be the process to go by, for us to go by in January, if that's something you can get together.
There really are two options. I say the two new board members need to be part of that conversation. Some school districts do a much more formal, like, request for proposals with a kind of an extensive required response, specific elements. Others just did more of a request for qualification, like letters of interest, so that you kind of can. Because for attorney services, it can also be non-competitive negotiations, so it doesn't have to be that formal of a process. And that's basically what you all did by doing those interviews. You all didn't have the RFP wasn't very formal. Like, there weren't a whole lot of required elements. But those are the two options. One is the more formal RFP, and the other is the informal kind of just presentation applications with interviews to be able to do non-competitive negotiation. But those are the two formats that are available to you. And I agree with what Ms. Springate said as to how I think it was essentially just letters that were sent to selected firms that were within a certain radius of Woodford County. And because the firm I joined actually has a primary address in Paintsville, I had to ask for one of those letters because I still wanted to work for you all, and Paintsville wasn't within that radius. But anyway, that was the process that was used, as I recall, with Mr. Hawkins. We can do that again, but I think it ought to be, my recommendation is that the new board discuss that and say, I'm not going anywhere. I'll do whatever you all need me to help. If that's a month or two long process, whatever you need me to do, I'm not going anywhere. But I do recommend the board begin that process with the new board members getting sworn in next month.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chenoweth, and thank you for your service to Woodford County Schools and for your dad's service. That's been a long-standing relationship, and we're very appreciative and grateful for the services that you've provided to us. All right. Is there, I guess, to that end, is there a need for an executive discussion or an executive session?
I did have something under communications. I know
Okay.
we've all received some communications from parents, and I would ask that we add to the agenda in January to be able to discuss bathrooms and locker rooms as far as it involves the design of the new high school. I think that's probably something we need to figure out if we need to discuss that and figure out if there need to be any changes or if we don't need to have changes, but just something that should be on the table.
So you've had, is there a specific change that you have in mind for the new high school bathrooms?
I don't have any specific anythings in mind. I'm just saying we've received communications. It's something that parents are asking about, students are asking about, and I think to be responsive as a board, one way that we probably need to really think about is the design of that school, and if there are going to be changes, that would be something we'd want to get in front of, pretty quickly. So that's just something to discuss in January. I'm not asking for a agenda item that is a motion or a second or a vote, just something to discuss and perhaps have some information from the superintendent and his team and the architect and construction manager.
Okay, I think if there is,
I'm trying to figure out
Obviously-
what kind of parent communication we've had. Are you talking about what happened at the site-based meeting? Are you talking about the transgender issue for bathrooms? Are you suggesting that we make changes to the bathrooms so that we can accommodate everyone?
I'm not suggesting anything. I didn't attend the site-based meeting. I'm merely saying that we all received communications, and that's something I
Right.
think the board needs to discuss in an open meeting and ask that the superintendent place that on the agenda as a discussion item in January and get some information and input from the architect as far as the design and the construction manager, and that's really all I have to say.
okay, I think that's a topic for a different board chair than this one. So we can move on. I have not been contacted about that issue by any students.
I haven't either.
Just
to
for the
be-
record.
Yeah.
So just to clarify that, if you have Ms. Springate, then I did not receive that. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale, and I will second that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 4-0, and the meeting is adjourned.